Well, we're officially here now. No more training camp, no more preseason, no more half snaps, no more evaluating players that may not be on the field. This is the real thing now. Week 1 is here with the Minnesota Vikings. They host the San Francisco 49ers. Really, they're in Santa Clara if you want to be nitpicky with it. At US Bank Stadium this coming Sunday. We'll talk about that. But first, real quick, Mediokr Best Sports Podcast, Realistic Rating. Thanks for tuning in. So first, 53-man roster. Just a couple of notes there. I guess the only shocker, well, no, there's a couple of shockers. But as far as someone that made the team that I didn't expect to, we added 2 running backs to the roster spot. So now we have, 5 running backs? If you count, what's his name, C.J. Ham. I don't know if he's a fullback, halfback, hybrid, whatever. But anyway, other than that, you got 4 running backs. Latavius Murray, Dalvin Cook, Rock Thomas, and Mike Boone were added to the roster. And first on the Skull Weekly podcast a couple of weeks ago, I said, why not keep both? This question was asked as far as, hey, who would you keep, Rock Thomas or Mike Boone? And I like both running backs. I really, really do. I thought they would keep Rock Thomas over Mike Boone just because of his versatility as far as being able to mirror what Jet used to do, Jerick McKinnon. But Mike Boone had a pretty good preseason as well. But I also said, why not keep both if you can? And they did. They ended up keeping both of them. A couple of surprises that didn't make the roster. Jack Tocho out. Chad Beebe out. Let's see who else we got here. Tavares King out. And Ifedi Odenigbo out. Kendall Wright. You know what? Not to my surprise. Not really a shocker. I said they will probably keep him just because of his veteran leadership. But I must admit, Laquan Treadwell has outplayed Kendall Wright throughout all the preseason. He really has. I know that the beat reporter said, well, he also, Treadwell also outplayed Kendall Wright in training camp and in practices. But, from the outside looking in, all you see are the preseason games. And Kendall Wright hasn't done a damn thing. Now, part of that you can maybe blame on Trevor Siemian being his quarterback. By the way, Kyle Sloter, thank God he's on the roster, even though he's the QB3, which is ridiculous because we all know that he is head and shoulders better than Trevor Siemian. But I don't know if it's because of Trevor Siemian that Kendall Wright didn't look good. But damn it, you got to go out there and make plays. You have to go out there and do that. So, you know what? Shout out to Laquan Treadwell. I've been a heavy critic of his work out on the field. But you know what? He made a couple of nice plays with Kirk Cousins out there. I just wish he would be a little bit more faster, but that's not his game. But Kendall Wright is out. Now, 2 big-time surprises for me. Number 1, Terrence Newman is retiring, or he already has retired from playing as an NFL player. And shout out to him for being able to, 400 years old in football years, for him to be able to still play corner. We see so many times when a defensive back, when a cornerback starts to get a little bit older up in age, and then they shift to safety, right? They shift over to safety like Charles Woodson, but this dude, Terrence Newman's kept playing corner. And to be able to match those guys with their power, their torque, their hip movement, everything, guys that are probably damn near half his age, that's impressive. But anyway, he's retiring as an NFL player, and he's now going to be an assistant coach on the Vikings coaching staff, a defensive backs coach. So shout out to him. And it frees up a spot for, Holton Hill, who, you know what, he didn't look great all preseason, but he made a couple of nice plays. And playing cornerback is so hard, like right out the gate, to be able to just come in and make a contribution. Mike Hughes, he's a first-round pick. There's a big difference from being that and an undrafted free agent cornerback in Holton Hill. So you know what? Hey, I didn't think he would clear waivers if they were to release him to try to get him back on the practice squad, Holton Hill. And so thankfully they kept him. And Terrence Newman is the most selfless guy out there. He's like, you know what? My body just isn't like what it was anymore. I can't be selfish and take away a roster spot from somebody else. That is some straight up leadership right there. So shout out to him on doing that. But so anyway, also the other surprise there. So now you've got your secondary now. As far as cornerback rotation, no more do we have the luxury of Terrence Newman covering up a little bit of our young guys' mistakes. Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes, you got Mike Hughes, Mackenzie Alexander, and then you got Holton Hill after that. So those are your guys. So now Mackenzie Alexander, he's going to have a much bigger role than he has in years past because, again, Terrence Newman isn't there. Mike Hughes, I don't know if he might get a little bit of playing time depending on Mackenzie Alexander, how he does. But anyway, these young guys got to step up straight up. So looking forward to that. And then the other surprise for me, quite honestly, and this was on Saturday, so I was out at a wedding. I didn't even know this happened. A buddy of mine was just telling me, he was like, oh, Brian Robinson, he got released. I was like, what? What? Wait, what? I had to do a double take. What are you talking about? Really? He got cut, and I had to fact check it, and indeed he did. And I got to be honest, I get that the NFL is a cutthroat business. I get it. Like, there's no surprise to that. But I thought, much like Chad Greenway in, 2016, I thought this should have been Brian Robinson's last hurrah. This should have been his last chance. He spent 11 seasons with this Vikings organization, and I wrote about this. And sorry if I sound a little stuffy. I've got sinus issues. But as far as what I wrote about this for the Viking Age, as far as just a tribute saying thank you for all that you've done, Brian Robinson. He never cheated us out of his effort. He was the unsung hero, while Everson Griffin and then before that, Jared Allen got all the praise as superstar edge rushers. I get all that. But it's too many times I feel like there's a lot of players that get overlooked for just simply making play after play after play. And that was Brian Robinson. I'm going to miss those hook and reel celebrations after you get a sack. And it's not like this was some feel-good story saying, oh, we're going to do it for Brian Robinson so he'll take up a roster spot. It wasn't the case at all. I was saying to myself, this dude's still a serviceable edge rusher. He can still play in the league. This isn't some guy. Now, Chad Greenway, you could make the argument in 2016. Like, all right. Like, yeah, you're there, but, for the most part, we'll run nickel sets where the only linebackers, we're just going to have two linebackers out on the field. Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks, and once in a while, Chad Greenway, you'll get out there. It wasn't the same case with Brian Robinson coming off as far as backing up Danielle Hunter a couple of times, whatever, to where it's like, oh, this dude can still make a couple of plays. This dude had, I don't have it in front of me. I just looked at it. I believe last year he had 4 sacks last year. And I know that's nothing to raise hell about, but damn it, he's not just sitting there just with a jersey saying, oh, look at me, this is great, and a tribute to him. No. I just didn't understand. But then I was like, all right, fine. Like, they're trying to just, maybe they see a bunch of guys in training camp that will serve on the defensive end or defensive line to where they can just rotate a couple of younger guys. I said, all right, I guess I understand reluctantly. And then they cut Odenigbo, Ifeadi Odenigbo, a guy that I liked in preseason. I'm like, what the hell? Come on, what are we doing now? So I was a little bit disappointed. And I was really disappointed. This was supposed to be Brian Robinson's last hurrah. They do have a chance to win the Super Bowl. I really wish he got a chance to be a part of it. You remember, don't forget, this dude took a pay cut to return this year. So, I mean, just for him to do that, and he's saying, look, I just wanted to give it one last shot. I just wanted to, be loyal to this organization. Hell, I'd do it for free. That's Brian Robinson. Salute to this dude. Thank you for all that you've done for the Vikings. Thank you for not cheating us. As a fan, all you want are the players, the coaching staff, and the front office to care about the team's success just as much as you do as a fan. That's all. We're the ones that's investing our time. We're the ones that are investing our money. We're the one that's investing our energy into this team. At least care. I think too many times you see in other teams, other organizations, other players, not just in the NFL, but across sports as well, where they're like, I got a paycheck. I talk about Carmelo Anthony. He seems in the NBA. He seems like he just cares about getting a check, doesn't really care about helping the team out. I think Brian Robinson, for being able to make those sacks, he could have went off and left and probably got a bigger contract somewhere else back in his prime. But he said, damn it, I'm going to stay here. Thank you for all that you've done. You'll be a fan favorite forever. You'll never be forgotten. So, moving forward from that. So, earlier it was mentioned that Danny Isidora was reportedly expected to be the starting center for the Minnesota Vikings in week 1. Pat Elflein is going to be out week 1. Hopefully he can be back in week 2. He's not on the PUP list anymore. So, hopefully he's ready to go. So, the next day, and who was this reported by? This was reported by Brian Baldinger. So, he's an NFL writer. He tweeted out, quote, Vikings will start Danny Isidora at center this week, making his second NFL start. His first at center. It's not a can of corn going into the pivot for the first time. Snaps can be an issue. I wish 63 well. Baldy breakdown. So that was Brian Baldinger reporting that Danny Isidora is going to be the starting center. And then Kirk Cousins alluded to the day after that, say, no, it's going to be Brett Jones. He's going to be the center. And Mike Zimmer would never, come out with it and say who's going to be the starting center. So nobody knows what's going to happen, damn it. But if you're going to have Brett Jones at center, that means you're going to have Tom Compton at left guard, and you cannot have this dude on the field. There is no reason that Tom Compton needs to be on the field ever. In fact, I don't even understand how he's on an NFL roster right now. That dude he's as good as me or you being out there at left guard. Just a revolving door, right? So, and now, if you're going to have Danny Isidora as your starting center, which isn't necessarily ideal, but you can have Brett Jones at left guard, and you can have, in my humble opinion, I'd rather have Mike Remmers at right tackle, but Mike Remmers is going to be at right guard, and Rashad Hill at right tackle. So, this offensive line, we've already got question marks as far as the rotation. I get that it's because Pat Elflein is out. So, starting in week 2, hopefully that won't be an issue. But, you know what? Hopefully, as long as you don't have Tom Compton on the field, I'm good with it. If he's on the field, he could get Kirk Cousins killed out there straight up. He was a disaster in the preseason. So if you're on the road, not able to watch me on YouTube, see the videos, you can listen to me on iTunes, in your car, whatever, through audio podcasts. Just search Realistic Randy, and you'll be good to go from there. Now, for this Falcons game, a couple of pros that I have and cons that I have for this game. Now, I do expect the Vikings to win this game. I think it's going to be a close game, quite honestly. And here, a couple of pros I got. Now, I love Jerick McKinnon. Love him to death. He's out for the year with a torn ACL. If we're talking about football, you don't have to worry about a shifty running back in Jerick McKinnon making plays on you like that. They've got Alfred Morris. They've got Matt Breida. So, hopefully, it's not Jerick McKinnon, who's very underrated in my opinion, but he's out for the year. So, you don't have to worry about him. Number 2, Richard Sherman. Now, if you're Stephon Diggs, now, here's the thing. I believe that Stephon Diggs is going to have a better year. Now, last year, Adam Thielen was Case Keenum's guy, and Stephon Diggs had to kind of pick up the slack after that, kind of being the second fiddle. I think this year it's going to be the opposite. I think Stephon Diggs, and they showed that in the preseason, I think Stephon Diggs is going to be Kirk Cousins' favorite target, and Adam Thielen is going to be the second guy as far as wide receiver 2. Now, having said that, when it comes to, if I'm these receivers, if I'm John DeFilippo, I'm going after Richard Sherman, and I get that he's an all-pro cornerback and a Pro Bowl cornerback and one of the best cornerbacks in the league as far as a couple of years ago. This year, not so much. Now, he's coming off, I believe, the torn Achilles, but not only that, he's a zone corner. He's always been a zone corner. I expect the Minnesota Vikings to attack that, man, and the dude coming off injury who's a zone corner, go after this dude. Go after spaces where he's not going to be at. And look, who's to say? I'm really curious to see where he's at physically speaking. Can he keep up with these shifty dudes? I would put Stephon Diggs right there across from Richard Sherman. Now, as far as trying to get a couple of breaks, now here's the thing. Stephon Diggs, we're not talking about some straight routes here. Again, zone corner. Go out there, use your hips, make some fast turns, some fast cuts, and get Richard Sherman to prove to you as the Minnesota Vikings that he can keep up and that he's still one of the best cornerbacks in the league. I'm not so sure that he is, but I would really, really, really attack Richard Sherman. And I know that's something that not a lot of people would have said a couple of years ago. So this defense is going to be right there. I expect them to really perform. And this offensive line, I think it's going to be a little bit shaky, but now, if you got Tom Compton out there, all bets are off. I don't know what the hell is going to happen. This thing might go into overtime. We might even lose this game. It's really, really that serious when it comes to Tom Compton. He does not belong on the football field. Now, assuming that you're starting Danny Isidora and you got Brett Jones as your left guard, and you know what? I can deal with Mike Remmers at right guard and Rashad Hill at right tackle for a game. Okay, I can deal with that for right now, for this particular game. But if Tom Compton's on the field, hey, all bets are off. Now, assuming he's not, hey, I think Kirk Cousins will be fine. The run blocking, I still have questions about. I thought the run blocking during the preseason wasn't really all that great. Dalvin Cook, I believe he got 2 snaps or 2 rush attempts for like a yard. It didn't really look that great. But even before that, outside of that, the run blocking just hasn't been there. I think if the offensive line does struggle, they're going to look to try to get rid of the ball quickly, and that's all well and good. I do think that the Minnesota Vikings should win this game. Now, Daniel Carlson, we'll have to see. You need your kicker. This is going to be a close game. Can you perform? We will have to see. But I do believe Kirk Cousins will be fine. I think the offensive line can be okay. Again, Tom Compton, that's the wild card right there. And again, these receivers we have, go after Richard Sherman. just quick slants, or not even that, just quick outside posts, quick out and in and out routes, whatever it is you got to do to force Richard Sherman to keep up with those speedy receivers. Adam Thielen, he could, you know what, he's sneaky fast, but not as fast as Stephon Diggs. This is one of the best route runners in the NFL, Stephon Diggs is. Now, as far as cons in this game, cons that I've got in this game, there's really two. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo is still an unknown. Now, he had, 4 or 5 games that he went undefeated last year at the tail end of the season. Now, is he going to pick up where he left off last year? I'm sure Mike Zimmer studied a lot of film on him. Defense is his baby. We all get that. But he could be a really, really good quarterback. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be a hell of a quarterback. I think he's the Niners franchise quarterback of the future. Before this game, is he ready for this defense? I'm not so sure, but he's very, very talented. I do believe he's going to be a great quarterback. And the other con that I have, possible con, is Kyle Shanahan. This dude's just as much as Mike Zimmer is a mastermind on defense, Kyle Shanahan is the same on offense. Now, this was interesting. Eric Branch tweeted this out. Eric Branch tweeted this out. He covers the San Francisco 49ers. Eric Branch tweeted out, Kyle Shanahan's quarterbacks in 4 games versus Mike Zimmer defense. So Kyle Shanahan's quarterbacks going up against Mike Zimmer's defense in 4 games. 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 281 yards average passing attempt per game, and 109.9 passer rating. All right, so that's not good, okay? So if you got a mastermind in defense and Mike Zimmer going against a mastermind in offense going against Kyle Shanahan, we'll have to see how that plays out, man. I'm really interested to see how that works out. So those are the 2 major concerns. I'm not really worried about the Niners on defense, quite honestly. Not on offense. On their offensive line, they've got a guy in Joe Staley. He's a hell of a left tackle. He's been a linchpin for their offensive line for the last several years. So Everson Griffin versus Joe Staley, that's going to be a battle that I'm looking for. But I'm telling you, man, Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo, I hope that Mike Zimmer's ready for this, and I hope Kirk Cousins is ready to respond when necessary. Also, I saw that Jordan Reed, J.R. Reed Scout, or J. Reed Scout, he does a podcast. He talks Vikings on Twitter all the time. He also tweeted out something that along the tunes of, I don't have it in front of me, but that the magic number for the Minnesota Vikings is 21. And that the Vikings record, when they scored 21 points or more with Mike Zimmer and his tenure with the Vikings, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 32-4. It was some ridiculous record where it's like, as long as they score 21 points, they're a tough team to beat. And that should be the same thing. This defense has always been good enough to where we don't need to score 25, 28, 30 points a game to stay relevant. You can score 21 points. I think this defense will step up. But again, Jimmy Garoppolo, he might test this defense out. And Trey Waynes, yes, he'll get targeted a lot, but this is what he's used to. He was the 5th most targeted cornerback in the league last year. This is just his job. When you take that much work opposite Xavier Rhodes, he's used to it, and he holds his own. So we'll just have to see. But I do think that Jimmy Garoppolo could test this defense. So don't panic. Don't panic right out the gate if they score a couple of points, the Niners do. But when you add Jimmy Garoppolo with Kyle Shanahan, that's the one thing I'm concerned about. So anyway, we do this once a week. Mediocre Best Sports Podcast with Realistic Randy. You can subscribe to YouTube, iTunes. Follow the Facebook page. Search Realistic Randy. You can find me on Twitter at realistic_Randy. We'll see you next week.